What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, my favorite thing to talk about. And we're going to lay out the mental framework that I have and my perspective as a long-time investor in Bitcoin. And I'm going to talk about why I believe that Bitcoin is the greatest performing asset for the past decade and why it will continue to be the best performing asset for the next century and why it's designed to increase in value forever. Shout out to Chase Your Dreams. He's the one that inspired me to make this video because of his curiosity and his desire to learn. So good job, Chase. Thank you. So why Bitcoin? First of all, this is not financial advice. So don't try to sue me if things don't go your way, okay? Second of all, everything that I'm speaking about today is just a scratch of the surface of the Bitcoin rabbit hole. It took me 4 years of research, literally thousands of hours of reading about Bitcoin and everything else that comes with it in order to understand what this asset is and why I have so much conviction in it. So the thing about Bitcoin is, in order for you to understand it, you have to understand history, cryptography, computer programming, coding, developing money, the history of money, game theory, so many different aspects that you need in order to have in your arsenal in order to understand this very complicated new technology. And so I really encourage you guys to just do your own research. And when I say do your own research, I don't mean just going on Google and typing in, should I buy Bitcoin? And go with whatever first headline you see. You have to understand that a lot of these articles that you're reading online about Bitcoin or whatever else, who's writing it? I mean, you gotta look at it, guys. These guys are journalists. These guys are reporters. Their job is to write whatever story it is that's hot right now, whatever direction or bias that their company that's hiring, that's paying them to write. They're gonna go with that agenda. And do they understand the technology? No, most likely not. Do they understand economics? Probably not. So you got to really dig deep. If you want to do research, there's so many things out there right now, with Google and with the library and everything at your fingertips. It's really hard to filter out good information. So you got to look at the smart money, look at the people that knows what they're talking about, and hopefully learn from them and read and dig deep in that sense instead of just reading and grabbing headlines. And remember one thing, guys, investments don't make you money. Patience and conviction does. Just think about all the people that bought Bitcoin at $1. You guys might think they're lucky, but think about the shit that they had to go through for holding this thing from $1 through all the crashes, and now is at $19,000. It wasn't an easy ride, guys. They didn't get lucky. That's conviction, that's patience, that's faith, that's understanding, that's research, that's everything. You need that in order to make money. Otherwise, it's just a game of luck at that point, right? So let's go deeper into that. So the first reason why Bitcoin is so valuable is the rule of supply and demand. This is the most basic rule of economics that you can possibly dig up. How valuable is an object? It's all about the supply and demand. The more supply that thing has, the less demand it's going to have. And the less supply it has, the more demand it's going to have. And with Bitcoin, it's a positive feedback loop. Because even though we can't measure the demand for sure, what we can always do is count on the supply of Bitcoin being fixed. And that's the key part here. So that's going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever created. Ever. There will never be more. It's impossible to produce more. No one can produce more. I don't care if you try to put $1 trillion into Bitcoin and try to fix the algorithm or try to change the protocol. You cannot do it. No one can do it. Governments can't do it. The best hacker in the world can't do it. Multi-billionaires can't do it. It's just impossible. It's already written in the code, and that's the one code that can't be changed. So now with that, just think of it like 21 million gold bars in cyberspace on the internet, in the digital world, right? And a lot of us, we grew up in this digital age, and a lot of boomers or older people, they can't wrap their head around that. They're stuck on gold because gold is a physical object and they can touch it. But even with gold, there's no fixed supply. You don't know how rare gold really is. You don't know if maybe we'll find another huge giant surplus of gold just sitting somewhere and we're gonna dig it up, and then how is that's gonna dilute the total supply of gold and decrease the value of gold. With Bitcoin, you know for a fact exactly how much is being mined, how much is being produced and being created every single year. And you know that after a certain amount, which is 21 million, there will never be more. So you can think of it like digital gold or digital real estate, or just basically your piece of the pie. When you buy one Bitcoin, you know that nobody else can take that away from you, that no one can dilute that supply, that can print more Bitcoin like the way they print fiat money. You know that that's your piece of the property, and no one can possibly take that away from you, and that's a very powerful thing. So now let's take that number and put into context, okay? 21 million Bitcoin. So right now it's 2020. So the world population projected right now is roughly around 8 billion people. 8 billion people in the world right now. And of course, it's only going to continue to get bigger and bigger as the year goes by. So let's just look at 8 billion. So 21 million Bitcoin divided by 8 billion people equal 0.0026 of a Bitcoin per person. So an average person can only have this many Bitcoin. Do you understand that? That means that if Bitcoin gets accepted and it becomes the global reserve currency or whatever, right? Whatever the projection that it's going to be in the future, based on the supply, based on how rare it is, how scarce it is, and looking at the total population of the people that's on the planet right now, each person can only have 0.0026 of a Bitcoin. That's, I don't know, what's the average, what's the price of that right now? Let's say $20,000 right now, $2,000 to get you this. So that's about $200 worth of Bitcoin right now. So if you have $200 to spend and you put that into Bitcoin right now, you already claim your share of the pie. Do you understand that? And so anything else that you put in that's higher than that, it's going to increase your likelihood of being the top 1% or top 5% or top 10% of the world. Imagine someone that has one Bitcoin right now. Look how much ahead they are. That's an increase of 500. They have the property of 500 people. They have the wealth of 500 people average from just owning one Bitcoin. That's $20,000 right now. And always remember, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy they call it a Satoshi, which is 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So guys, it's never too early, it's never too late to start investing in Bitcoin now. One more thing. How many millionaires are in the world right now? According to this credit report, there are 47 million millionaires in the world in mid-2020, or about 10% of the world's adults. 1%, 0.92% of the world's adult. So almost 47 million millionaires. Think about it, guys. 21 million Bitcoin, 47 million millionaires. That means that even if every millionaire wants to have one Bitcoin, that's not enough. That's not enough. They can only own 0.456 of one Bitcoin per millionaire. So if you think about it, if this thing catches on, right, and every millionaire wants to have one Bitcoin because they look at it as like, let's just say it's not even as currency. Let's just say as a collectible item. They can't even own a half of a Bitcoin because of the fixed supply, because of the scarcity of Bitcoin. Do you understand how powerful the number 21 million is? So anyways, so that's the numbers. We ran the numbers. Supply and demand. So Bitcoin is produced by a power-intensive digital mining called proof of work. So the same way that miners have to dig for gold, and it requires a lot of energy and effort and power and labor, the same thing can be said for Bitcoin. In order to produce one Bitcoin in cyberspace, in the digital environment, it takes a lot of power, guys. And power aren't cheap. And so therefore, that's why it's called proof of work. So that's why people compare it to gold, because just like gold, this thing is so scarce that it requires that much power just to produce one. And unlike fiat or paper currency, USD, Euro, Yen, which they can print out of thin air. So which money do you want to have? What form of money would you prefer? One that you can't print more of, or one that's being printed at will by the government in order to dilute the supply and in order for them to fund their own agenda, while you have to take the other end of it, which is inflation, hyperinflation. We're gonna go more into that later. So there's also this mechanism inside of Bitcoin's protocol called a halving. So every 4 years, every 4 years, like clockwork, the Bitcoin supply cuts in half. The outflow of supply cuts in half, meaning that for every 4 years, the algorithm changes so that only half the amount of Bitcoin can be mined by a miner per block. So it's literally, let's say, like Tesla. Let's say they release the Tesla truck and there's only 100 of them per year being made. And let's say every 4 years, now there's only 50 Tesla trucks per year. And then 4 years later, there's only 25 trucks. That's kind of like that. Except with Tesla, you can always have Elon Musk. That's one person. He can always change the rules. He can always say, oh, you know what? Actually, we're going to increase that next year because of the demand. The demand is coming up. It's a lot more valuable. So let me go ahead and make more so I can sell more. So what that's going to do is create a negative feedback loop that makes the Tesla truck less valuable. With Bitcoin, you can't do that because no one controls Bitcoin. We don't have a CEO. We don't have anyone that runs Bitcoin. The code is the code. It's already written. There's nothing you can do to change it. And that's what's so powerful about the supply and demand theory, the basic economics of Bitcoin. So every 4 years, that amount get cut in half. And that halving is the reason why we have these price movement cycles every 4 years. And we'll get deeper into that in a little bit. So supply and demand, as you can see, in 2009, about 50 Bitcoin was produced per block. I'm not going to go into all that because that's like I said, everything that we're speaking about today, it can be extrapolated into multiple different hours of videos of explaining just that concept alone. But I encourage you to do your own research. That's what I say. That's what I mean when I say that. So right now we're just scratching the surface. So all the how or why or what, you guys might have to do your own research on that, or I might have to make a separate video explaining that. But right now, I'm just gonna go over the simple basics of Bitcoin. So in 2009, we have 50 Bitcoin produced per block. In 2012, that was the first halving. The 50 supply get cut down to 25 Bitcoin per block. 2016 was the second halving, and then we had 25 gets cut down to 12.5 Bitcoin per block. And the most recent halving that we just had in May 2020 cuts the supply down to just 6.25 Bitcoin being mined every block. So think of it as every 4 years, it's twice as hard to make one Bitcoin. That's all there is to it. And every 4 years, it's going to be another supply shock. It's going to be twice as hard to make that many Bitcoin. That's all there is to it. So now, guys, if you look at the chart, what does that mean for the price? A lot of people, they like to be fixated on the most recent price action. They like to look at the 2017 run-up, and then they look at the crash of 2018, and they say, oh, Bitcoin is dead, it's a bubble. But you got to zoom out. You got to see where it came from and where it's going to go. This is 2011, okay? Bitcoin started out at less than a cent per coin, guys. It went all the way up, okay, to about $30. As you can see here, $30, the all-time high. And then it crashed to about $1. So it went from about a penny to $30 and then crashed to $1. And then people were saying, oh, man, this thing is dead. This is a stupid experiment. This thing's never going to last. And guess what? The halving came. So the halving is this vertical line here. And after that, Bitcoin started its next leg up, which is what people call the bull market. And it basically blasted through the previous all-time high here at $30, went all the way up to $1,000. It broke the previous all-time high at $30 and got to $1,000. And then it crashed to about $150, $200. So it went from $30 to $1,000, and then it crashed to $250. And people were saying it's dead once again. But like I said, it's just the natural cycle of Bitcoin. And then guess what? The next halving occurred right here. And that's when Bitcoin went back up again, smashed through the previous all-time high, which was $1,000, and it got to about $19,000 right here. So a 19x increase. And then it crashed to about $3,000 in 2018. So it broke through 1,000, made it to 20,000, and crashed to 3,000. And once again, the critics, the skeptics, the naysayers, they all said Bitcoin was dead. And guess what? Here we are. Right now, we're sitting at $19,000, right at the high. And I'm just asking you guys, you guys are smart people. You can see the patterns. You can see the cycles repeating itself. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think is going to happen next? So when I tell people my $100,000 Bitcoin price forecast for this bull run, that's conservative, guys. That's only a 5x from this top right here, which is $20,000. A lot of people are calling for $300,000. Citibank called for $300,000. So that's the upside. And then even when it does crash again, if it does crash again, right, it will still crash about 3x above its previous all-time high. So I would say about 20 times 3 is about 60,000. So around something up here. So you're still early, guys. At this price, you might never see this price again. Once Bitcoin gets another leg up, you might never see this price again. Because as you can see, every time we broke past the previous all-time high, it never comes back. It never comes back, even when it pulls back. See, this is about, what is that? Almost $300. This is 30. See, it's nowhere near that. And then it kept going up. And then after that, this is 19,000, and this is 3,000. And see, it never went back to the previous all-time high again. So that's where we're at right now. That's the pivot point that we're at right now. So a lot of people think they're late. No, you're early. You're very early. You're early. You're earlier than the people that was here since the last cycle. A lot of people bought this right here. They bought this top right here. They had to endure all of this. And then now finally they're here again. Now, of course, the time that they spent in the market and in Bitcoin, all this time, they probably did a lot of research and they got a deeper understanding and a stronger conviction because of it. However, if you're looking at it from a price perspective, you are now getting to buy in at the same price that they bought in without all the pain that they went through. And now you have nothing but upside from here, according to history. Now, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Okay? So that's the halving. So when you want to compare the supply and demand of Bitcoin, the supply schedule of Bitcoin to the US dollar, the fiat paper currency that we have today, right? Ever since COVID, do you know how much money was printed? Look, 23.6% of all US dollars were created in the last year. Do you know how frightening that is? Do you understand the consequences of that? Come on. 23.6% of all US dollar, almost a quarter of all the US dollar supply were created in the last year. In this year alone, that's what they meant by that, this year, 2020, because of COVID. Look, money supply up over $3 trillion since March. The money supplies keep increasing. Shoop. And then here we have that parabolic leg up because of COVID, because of Corona. The greatest year-over-year money supply surge in history. US dollar losing value as national debt explodes. Nationally, the dollar is under pressure because the Federal Reserve and the US government are flooding the system with greenbacks to boost the economy in a time of distress. The glut of supply has served to make each dollar relatively less valuable. Beyond that, the dollar also appears to be buckling under the pressure of the debt as US government is accumulating. The national debt has exploded in 2020 and could balloon by $4 trillion to $5 trillion before the year's end, the largest annual increase in history. In history, guys. So that's what you're trading for. You're trading this money that's being manipulated and being printed out of thin air and devaluing your hard work for Bitcoin, which only gets more and more scarce and more stronger in supply per year. It's a no-brainer. All right, US printed more money in 1 month than in 2 centuries. The Federal Reserve's money printer has cranked up to a ridiculous level, but would it really lead to inflation? Psh, you tell me. That's a very obvious answer to that. Doomed to fail, why a $4 trillion bailout couldn't revive the American economy. An avalanche of U.S. grants and loans helped the wealthy and companies that laid off workers. Individuals received about 1/5 of the aid. The government doesn't care about you. The government never give a fuck about any of you guys. They just wanted you guys vote, and then when they get there, they bail out their corporate buddies, they bail out the banks, they bail out the airline companies. They gave the U.S. citizens about $1,200 stimulus that probably doesn't even last them for a month. And then ever since then, nothing. And look at them now. They can't even pass another stimulus package because they're too busy arguing. They're too busy fighting over who won the vote. They're selfish. That's all there is to it. You guys are surprised by this? Come on. So this is a clip that I want you guys to watch. And this is Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Just listen to what he's saying.
Simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally, and we do that by buying treasury bills or bonds or other government guaranteed securities, and that actually increases the money supply. We also print actual currency, and we distribute that through the Federal Reserve banks.
Well, I mean, at least you can respect him for being honest. You know why he's being honest? Because he knows that you guys don't know what the fuck he's talking about. You guys don't care enough to know. You guys don't realize the massive, devastating impact that this has on your future, on your wealth, your kids' wealth, your grandkids' wealth. He knows you guys don't understand none of that because school doesn't teach you this, right? Inflation, hyperinflation, money supply being ballooned. So he's confident enough to say that on air because he knows that 99% of the Americans just has no idea what the fuck he just said.
Simply.
So let's go to the next slide. So my question to you is this: is the value of Bitcoin going up, or is the value of the dollar going down? How about both? And it will continue to do that for the rest of time. And it's just period. So let's look at some example of hyperinflation. When governments all around the world are printing money to the point where their citizens are being starved to death because their money is worth dog shit. Germany, hyperinflation. In the period following World War I, Germany suffered severe economic and political shocks. So let's look at this. At its height, hyperinflation in Germany reached rates of more than 30,000% per month, causing prices to double every few days. Wow. Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwe's leader attempted to solve the problem by printing more money, and the country quickly descended into hyperinflation. At its peak, exceeded 489 billion% in 2008. Hungary. Economists estimate that the inflation rate in Hungary reached 41.9 quadrillion% per month. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Like, what's quadrillion? That's insane. That's insanity, guys. That's criminal. Destroying people's purchasing power, destroying people's value of their hard work, their savings, their life savings, their kids. That's criminal, guys. During this period, prices in Hungary doubled every 15 hours. Imagine that. So what does Bitcoin have to do with all of this? Watch. Venezuela's Bitcoin use soars amid hyperinflation. Venezuela have become increasingly interested in cryptocurrency as their country faces dire economic crisis and hyperinflation. A new study by Blockchain Data has shown. So, for us in the US, we may not think of Bitcoin as anything except this novel, new technology that, that could be something that might not be anything, whatever. For these people in other countries, Bitcoin is their lifeboat. Bitcoin is the ark that they need to survive the flood. Bitcoin, because if they convert their money into Bitcoin, they know they can retain the value of their purchasing power. So while their government is fucking with them, while their government is destroying their livelihood, they have something to hang on to. They have Bitcoin. They have hope. So when people that don't understand it, all you have to do is dig a little deeper and do some research. Bitcoin is humanitarian. Bitcoin is hope for the world. It's the first form of money that cannot be manipulated, cannot be controlled, cannot be printed more of, cannot be centralized. It's the people's money. It really is. People living in Venezuela suffer from extreme inflation and general economic instability. And here's a censorship-resistant, inflation-proof asset, so it's very attractive to people who are looking for a way to maintain value. No brainer. Hyperinflation, the disease for which Bitcoin is the cure. This is a $10 trillion note of Venezuelan money. I think it's the Bolivar. $10 trillion. Imagine how hyperinflated your currency has to be for you to have to print a $10 trillion note. So let's look at gold, okay? Gold has always been known to be scarce, and it's been the inflation hedge asset for thousands of years. It's been around for a long time, and a lot of people compare Bitcoin to gold. We call it digital gold, right? So let's start breaking it down. 40 million troy ounces. Russia's gold fine reaffirms Bitcoin as the more scarce asset. This 40 million troy ounces of gold was found by Russia. So that's going to add to the supply of gold. And it's going to drive the price down. It's going to prove that gold does not have verifiable scarcity. It has relative scarcity, as in we think we know there's not going to be that much gold out there, but we don't know. We don't know. Elon Musk could be going to space and mine gold up there and bring it back. We know there's literally quadrillion tons of gold in Mars and other planets. The question is, do we have the technology to bring it back? I don't know. Ask Elon. He's pretty close to it probably. So what's going to happen to the value of gold? What's going to happen to the whole theory of gold being inflation hedged? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer network. It has no middleman, no third party, censorship resistance, immutable, zero hacks since its conception, minimal fee per transfer, impossible to stop per transaction. Bitcoin's design is so genius. Satoshi Nakamoto. There's so many things about it that I can't even explain it all. I can't even list them all in this one video. It's going to take you a lot more research to understand. It's genius, guys. It's the greatest invention of humankind. It's the first form of money with fixed supply, cannot be stopped, cannot be manipulated, cannot be censored, cannot be hacked. It's incredible. So let's look at this right here. A transaction worth over $140 million of Bitcoin was transacted on Saturday. The sender paid a fee of roughly $14. No trusted party was required. Nobody needed to authenticate the assets. Just millions of dollars of value sent peer to peer. $140 million of Bitcoin sent for $14 in fees. You know how much it costs to send money? Let's try MoneyGram. If you wanted to send $1,400, it costs you $14 in fees. Right here. And this person spent the same amount on fees to send $140 million. Do you see the superiority there? Do you see why it's better? So let's look at gold, okay? This is what it looks like to have 1.6 tons of gold in this man's truck. Imagine carrying this around, and that's a value of about $106 million. That's what it looks like to have that in $100 bills. So now, imagine somebody's having this much wealth in gold. How would they carry this thing around? How would they move this thing? How would they prevent themselves from getting robbed and getting extorted or getting stolen. Like, how would that work? It's impossible. And if you want to keep this in the bank, or you want to rent out a warehouse to store all this gold, you know how much money that's going to cost you per month just for that alone, just for rent alone? And how about if you want to send this somewhere? What if your country is at war? And what if you need to move to a different state or a different country, crossing borderlines or whatever? How do you carry all this with you? What do you do? You know how much $500 million worth of Bitcoin looks like? This. Just a single digital wallet. This thing can hold infinite amount of Bitcoin. However much value you want can be put on this one single wallet. $1 trillion on this single thing. And guess what? You don't even need this wallet. You know why? Because if somebody stole this wallet, this physical wallet from this man right here, they can't steal his Bitcoin. They can't just open it up and steal the Bitcoin. Why? Because it's being protected by code. It's being protected by cryptography. All you got to do is memorize a 24 C words. 24 random words that basically generate your wallet. That's the private key. When you memorize those 24 C words in your brain, you can go anywhere, cross-border, wherever. And you can take your entire wealth with you. You can take all of your livelihood, your money, your savings in your head with you anywhere, cross-border. Imagine trying to cross a border, trying to get on an airplane with this much gold. Or imagine trying to flee a country that's being, overran by dictators or rebellions or whatever, trying to carry this much gold, this much cash. How would that work? But if somebody has Bitcoin, they don't even need this wallet. They can just throw that shit away and just memorize the C words in their brain, and they can go anywhere. They can transfer their wealth anywhere in the world instantaneously. It goes with them. That's the beauty of Bitcoin. That's the beauty of digitization. That's the beauty of dematerializing wealth. We'll get more into that later. China may censor YouTube. They may censor Twitter. They won't be able to censor Bitcoin. There's no central authority. There's no one you can go and just say, we're going to turn Bitcoin off. That's the beauty of peer-to-peer network. It's everywhere, but it's nowhere. You cannot shut it down. There's no snake. There's no head of the snake that you can cut off. There's nobody. You can't call Mark Zuckerberg into Congress and subpoena him and tell him, hey, you got to shut Bitcoin off. You can't call Elon Musk. You can't call Bill Gates. There's nobody. There's no CEO. Bitcoin has no one. You can't stop it. You can't ban it. You can't do anything to it. So let's look at this argument of Bitcoin versus gold. It's a very important argument right now because, a lot of Wall Street guys are coming around saying that Bitcoin might be better than gold. So since paper or fiat currency aren't even in the same league when it comes to sound, hard money, the only competition for Bitcoin, it's gold. Because you got to understand, paper money was built on top of gold. It's the second layer on top of gold. It was supposed to be pegged to gold. It was supposed to be that you can only print the amount that you have in gold supply, in storage. But in 1971, Richard Nixon signed a piece of paper that cut off that peg. So now paper money, US dollar, is no longer pegged to gold. That gave them the power to print as much as they want. They don't have to. They have no restraint. So that of course, that's not even a competition for Bitcoin. So now the only competition that we can possibly have is gold, right? So the question is asked, which is better, gold or digital gold? So to answer that question, I want to raise my own question. So out of all of these, which one do you think is better? You ready? Let's play this game. Amazon or Sears? Netflix or Blockbuster? Apple or Kodak? Google or your public library? Google Maps or your paper maps? Which one would you rather pick out of these items? Do you want to pick a store that's in cyberspace that has no retail, physical, brick and mortar representation that can fit infinite amount of inventory that's peer-to-peer, or would you rather have this? Which one is winning currently? Would you rather have a streaming service that allows you to watch any show, any movie right from your home on the internet, basically just downloading the video into your TV simultaneously and watch it right then and there? Or do you want to go to a physical store to rent out a movie and take it home with you and have to return that movie in 2 or 3 days? Would you rather have a camera that you can take a picture of and then have to go and get it developed either digitally or physically? Or would you rather have an Apple camera that's 10,000 times better than this camera? And not only that, it also can do a million other things with its apps and its, everything else. Which one would you rather have out of these two? Would you rather have the Google search engine that you can find anything, information on any topic, on any, any relative, anything? Or would you rather have the public library where you got to go and look for a particular book, flip through every single page, every chapter, write down notes? Would you rather have a paper map that you have to look at and read and figure out which way to go as you're driving? Or would you rather have Google Maps, which has GPS, incorporated inside it so that you know exactly where you're going, which direction you're heading? It tells you every gas station, every store along the way, tells you whether or not to go to this restaurant because it has a bad ratings, or whether or not which gas station has the best price available. Which one would you rather have? That's all you got to ask yourself. So just visualize yourself 10, 20 years from now, how different the world will be, and think back in hindsight to this exact moment. How obvious is this transformation, this evolution of money? So everything in the world is being digitized, dematerialized, and virtualized. Isn't money the next obvious step? Ask yourself that. So the market cap of Bitcoin, this is a very important thing to go into in order to understand why Bitcoin will continue to pump forever. So in order to calculate the value of an asset, we take the total market capitalization, which is the total value of all Bitcoin issued, and divide it by the current circulating supply. So as of right now, the market cap of Bitcoin is about $323 billion. And you get that by taking $19,000, which is the price per Bitcoin, times 17 million Bitcoin that's circulating right now. Because like I said, they only mined 17 million Bitcoin so far, out of the 21 million Bitcoin that's going to be mined. So that's the market cap, total market cap, about $300 billion. Now, if you want to look at that and compare that to the rest of the assets in the world, this is Bitcoin, this tiny little circle, about $300 billion in market cap. Gold's market cap is $8 trillion. $8 trillion for gold. The stock market is $77 trillion. All the money in the world is about $95 trillion. Real estate market is about $217 trillion. And the global debt is $247 trillion. And keep in mind that this is before 2020. So this has been much bigger. This has been much bigger. This has been much bigger, and everything else. So Bitcoin compared to gold, stock, real estate, global debt, all in the trillions. And Bitcoin is still $300 billion. And that shows you how early you are. So if gold's current market cap is roughly $8 trillion and Bitcoin's is only 300 billions, then Bitcoin would have to increase by a multiple of 24x from here just to match gold. So that put each Bitcoin at around $480,000. 24x from where we are right now, about $20,000. That puts us as around $480,000 per Bitcoin. That's only to get to gold's market cap, just gold. And this is why Bitcoin is designed to increase forever. There's a halving every 4 years that's constricting the supply of Bitcoin that we talked about. That's going to continue to do that every single 4 years. Every 4 years, it gets twice as hard to make one Bitcoin. It is also the first invention in humankind that has a fixed supply, impossible to change or manipulate. We talked about that before. It cannot be controlled, it cannot be banned, it cannot be shut down. Programmable money, with the smartest, brightest developers in the world working on it 24/7, making it stronger, faster, and smarter forever. And only 0.01% of the world today uses Bitcoin or understand it. We are early. Guys, you may think that, man, Bitcoin has been going up for such a long time, and it's at $19,000 right now. It's late. I'm late to the party. There's no more upside left. You're wrong, my friend. There's a lot more upside left. And the way this thing is going, it's not just going to be an investment. It's going to be an exit. It's not an investment. It's an exit out of the old system into the new. Its market cap is currently smaller than Apple. Apple has a $1 trillion market cap. Now, Apple is a great company, don't get me wrong. But when you take something that could potentially be the global reserve currency, that could take over as the next digital gold, that's 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times better than gold, think about that in relative to what the world's best software computer company is. And the last reason, because it is denominated in fiat, which is paper currency, its value will only increase forever because the value of fiat will decrease forever. Guys, that's an easy concept to understand. I mean, a gallon of milk back in your grandma's day probably cost a nickel, a dime, a quarter. Now it's $4. So, and guess what? It's only going to get more expensive. So if you look at it like that, then if fiat money, if your paper money is only losing value, then that means that Bitcoin will only increase in value because it's going to cost a lot more of those paper money in order to buy one Bitcoin exponentially forever. So this is just my last slides, guys. Just going to be a few headlines grabbers. I'm just going to grab a few headlines of Wall Street finally waking up to Bitcoin. They finally understand it and they finally realize that this is the next best thing. A legendary hedge fund billionaire just flipped to Bitcoin, calling it better than gold. Bitcoin's reputation as digital gold has grown this year, with a number of high-profile investors naming it as an emerging inflation hedge. And that was Druckenmiller. Stanley Druckenmiller has revealed that he now owns some Bitcoin, saying he's warmed up to the cryptocurrency as a store of value. This guy is possibly the greatest investor that we have in our lifetime, Stanley Druckenmiller. Look him up. Paul Tudor Jones, legend. See massive upside in Bitcoin. It's like investing in Apple or Google early. American billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Tudor Jones had recently become more bullish on Bitcoin. He declared it to be the best hedge against inflation and compares investing in Bitcoin now to investing in early tech stocks like Apple and Google. Bitcoin is the single best performing asset by Bill Miller. This guy has been a Wall Street legend for years, guys, and once again, just another person finally waking up to Bitcoin. Former Wall Street legend Bill Miller has furthermore supported the view of Bitcoin, disclosed that Bitcoin has great potential. Just headlines, right? For years, JP Morgan was skeptical of Bitcoin. Now the bank's analysts say its value could triple, challenging gold. MicroStrategy CEO explains why Bitcoin is 1,000,000 times better than gold. Guys, Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategy, has possibly made the biggest headline this year by putting almost $500 million of his own company's money into Bitcoin. He invested it all into Bitcoin. And if you guys want to look him up and go to hope.com, and that's the website that he had, and he dedicated that to Bitcoin. And you can see all of his interviews, all the reasons why Bitcoin is the greatest investment you could possibly make of your lifetime and of your kids' lifetime. BlackRock CEO say Bitcoin can evolve into a global asset. BlackRock, that's the world's largest asset manager. So Wall Street is bullish. Wall Street is waking up to Bitcoin. And we are still so early, guys. I can't repeat that enough. And a lot of people, when they miss out on opportunities because they think that they missed the boat. You know, the same people that thought they missed the boat when Bitcoin was at $10. They said, man, it went from 2 cents to $10 were late. But guess what? They're not late. Here we are. We're at $19,000. They thought they missed the boat at $100. They thought they missed the boat at $1,000. And the same is going to be said 5 years from now when it's at $500,000 or $1 million. And you're going to think you missed the boat. I'm not here to try to be a salesman. I'm not here trying to pitch a sell to you, because it doesn't matter if you buy into Bitcoin or not. It's going to prove itself no matter what. It's already proven itself times and times again. And now we have big boy investors, whales, basically fund managers, Wall Street legends, every high net worth individual in the world is starting to understand it. It's gonna take over. It's just a matter of time. It's obvious at this point. So I'm not here trying to pitch a sales pitch to you guys. I'm not here trying to convince you guys to buy anything. I'm just asking you to wake up and do some research and maybe look into this thing. A lot of you guys like to invest in stocks. A lot of you guys like to buy gold, for example. A lot of you guys want to look for the next investment. Well, I'm telling you, look no further. You found it. You found it. All that needs to be done now is for you to dig deeper, understand better why Bitcoin is what it is, and grow your conviction. Because like I said, investments don't make you money. Patience and conviction does. So just look into this thing. And if it makes sense to you, if you think that this is the next step, then wouldn't this be the best investment you could possibly make? More than anything else, especially with the asymmetric risk to reward ratio that it has, where it can go up 50x from here, 100x from here. You know, it's a very asymmetric bet, guys. So that's all it is, man. That's what this video is all about. It's been a long video. Thanks everybody for staying, and I hope you learned something. And just remember, do your own research. And by do your own research, I mean really research, not just read headlines. And, you know, grow your conviction and understand why this is the greatest invention of humankind.